Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, my co-host, and we are back the day after Big Ten Media Days, and we're going to break it all down, everything that Matt Rhule said, his response to Scott Frost, information about the right tackle job, the best thing that Dylan Raiola said, and other takeaways from Big Ten Media Days. So before we get into it, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, get into the comment section. And Danny, how are you on this Thursday morning?
I'm
Wednesday
tired,
morning.
man. Between training camp and Big Ten Media Days, my fingers are so sore. 11 articles yesterday, but hey, it's that time of year, so I don't mind it. But boy, what a busy first day it was.
It is that time of year. And look, I got the day mixed up already. So I was thinking it was Thursday, but only Wednesday. So we still have 2 more days of Big Ten Media Days to go. But Nebraska was up front, or was one of the first teams there after Tony Petitti took the podium. So Matt Rhule, Dylan Raiola, all the guys, Deshaun Singleton, Henry Lutovsky, Marcus Buford, just so we have everybody that was there this time. They all took the podium, met with the media. There was some pretty interesting things that were said. And let's just jump right into it. I think the most interesting thing, or the biggest topic of conversation, is what Matt Rhule, in his response to Scott Frost, and he was asked, specifically about this in his breakout session, which is featured more local media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Steve Sipple who asked it to him, but somebody else might have. But I believe it was Steve Sipple of Husker Online. But essentially, he said, Scott, what are your reactions to Scott Frost and his comments about Nebraska, not being a good job? And Matt Rhule, I thought, handled it really well, as he always does. And he didn't throw Scott Frost under the bus, which would have been very easy to do. But he didn't do that when he got hired either. So that's just, I thought Matt Rhule showed a masterclass in leadership. And he agreed in many ways with Scott that this wasn't a great job when he got here. He said it wasn't a good job. We've made it a good job, and we're turning it into a great job. And that's how Matt Rhule really, kind of turned it into a positive, put a positive spin on it. He said a lot of positive things about Trev Alberts and how he kind of convinced Matt Rhule that this was going to be a great job at some point. So I thought it was, classic Matt Rhule, and he kind of stole the day. And I thought, won over even more people by his response to, what Scott Frost said about this job.
Well, look, I mean, when Scott Frost left the program, was fired, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't a desirable job at the time. There was a lot of work that had to be done, and it looked like an arduous task. And Matt Rhule came in, and he was able to flip the roster around, build depth, and now have put, the Huskers at a point where they can compete at a high level. And, I think that's a testament to, the type of program builder that he is. And, and I do think for some, this isn't a desirable job. It's a lot of pressure to coach at Nebraska. It's a pressure cooker here. I mean, some even want Matt Rhule fired, this season. So it is a tough job, and I could see where it wouldn't be desirable. That being said, I think Matt Rhule has, turned it around and has made it an attractive destination. I mean, you look at, getting Dylan Raiola, you look at, championing athletic director Troy Dannon, who has in turn, put more money into the NIL budget. You take a look at the facilities that the program is building. There's been a lot of, good things to happen since Matt Rhule came to the program, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
And I think, he does have, this program headed in the right direction. He's kind of that that CEO type, that can really oversee things. And I think he's built a great staff. I think he's built a great roster. And it was interesting, when he talked about the close losses, and he said, we just weren't good enough to win some of those games. That's what he said. And, maybe he is right on that. And in some ways he is, because if Nebraska was a better team, maybe it wouldn't have come down to, play here or play there or whatever. And so his focus wasn't like, oh, we're not just going to sit here and like run, 2-minute drills at the end of games, and we're just going to get better as a team. And that's going to be how you win those close games, because there isn't some magic formula to winning close games. It's just the better teams do it. And then, like I've said on here, going back the past few weeks, and why I think this Michigan game and the Cincinnati game is so important, is just having the confidence, right? Like when you get in that situation, like if you go into this Michigan game and you're in a battle with Michigan 14-14, you find a way to win 17-14 or 21-17, whatever. Then when you're down the road, you're at Minnesota, you're down by 7 points in the third quarter. you're sitting there like,
Mm.
oh, I've done this before. We came back and beat Michigan. We can do this. And so that's just such a different mindset of like when there's 10 minutes left in a game of
Yeah.
knowing that you can come back and do it as opposed to just wishing and hoping. And I feel like that's what Nebraska was doing before, was wishing and hoping. And this year they feel like they have the team where they know that when they get in that situation, they're going to be able to execute and win the game.
And a lot of it too starts with trusting your teammates and bonding with your brothers. And 2-minute drills are great and stuff, but if you don't trust the guy who's catching the pass or throwing the football or have confidence in your teammate, then the 2-minute drills only go so far. So I think even though there's a lot of new faces, this is a tight knit group. I mean, we saw Dylan Raiola working with Dane Keege, Corey Barney. Dayton came along too. A bunch of the wide receivers and tight ends over the course of the offseason. So I do think there is a sort of team building culture here, which is definitely a positive and something that Matt Rhule, made it clear he wanted to bring into the program on day one.
Yeah, and we talk about, culture and what's a championship culture look like. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. And I think
Mm.
Matt Rhule, really is building that. I think you saw a lot of
Mm-hmm.
really positive reactions to what he said. And I thought it was another, kind of positive viral moment. Matt Rhule tends to have a lot of these. I don't know, for whatever reason, a lot of things that he say tend to go, kind of viral or get picked up nationally, whether, he's talking about the playoff or whatever. But I think this was a good moment for Matt Rhule. And he also said a lot of, I think, interesting things about the team. I mean, listen to the way he talked about his coordinators. I think that should have fans really excited. John Butler, he said he was the most competitive person that he's ever been around. And he, at one thing that he said was like, he comes in, he's like, with his coordinator meetings, and he's like, I'm not sure what my job is here. And I know he's saying that jokingly, but I think that shows that there is a really high level of execution going on where Matt Rhule can really be the overhead CEO to make sure that all the little things are working correctly, and he doesn't have to micromanage the offense or the defense or the special teams per se.
And I think one of the downfalls, if you will, of Matt Rhule is that he loves this program so much that he wants his hands in everything, and it's kind of hard to rein him back sometimes. And I think having John Butler there just to kind of oversee the defense and take control of the unit will take a lot off of Rhule's plate. And having confidence in his defensive coordinator, before the season even starts. Again, it's awesome that Matt Rhule wants to be so involved with every aspect of the program, but just having a guy that can say, hey, I can do this, let me handle it, you go, coach the game and do what you need to do is definitely a good thing for the staff.
And it was interesting. I thought with the game, I don't know if you saw this, but before we move on to the next one, but talking about like game management decisions and important decisions that you need to make, there was one of those stand-up cameras, and they asked Matt Rhule and Dylan Raiola, what if you were down by 15 points and you scored a touchdown, would you go for two the first time or the second time? And it was interesting because they gave different answers. Dylan said that he would kick the PAT the first time and wait to go for it. He was like, you don't go for the 2-point as long as you need it or until you really need it. And Rhule was like, no, you go for it the first time. That way, if you need to do an onside kick or whatever. And the interviewer was like, that's cool. Your quarterback said the wrong thing. And he's like, well, he doesn't make those decisions, which I just thought that was an interesting interaction. I agree with Dylan. I don't think you go for two until you have to, but I don't know.
Either.
It's an interesting thought because if you get the first one, then you could actually, if you wanted to, you could go for two twice and try to win. But I mean, your percentages it's a 50-50 play. So if you got the first one, your percentages are pretty low getting on the second one. So, I mean, so you'd have to really have confidence in your play call. But I don't know. It's interesting. Penn State did it once a few years ago, and the thing about it is like if you do it as a coach, you kind of get killed because when you put yourself, if you miss it down by 9.
Yeah.
So, but I understand his thinking because he was like, that way, if we don't get it, we know we might still have time to like go for an onside kick. I don't know.
It's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? I mean, to me, there's really no wrong answer. I agree with Dylan, but I could see where Matt Rhule's coming from as well.
Just don't get down 15, but with whatever. But what's interesting,
let's not get down 15 in the first place.
What's interesting is I've seen, my Packers did it once when I was at a game. They came back from 16 down to win, or 17 down to win, excuse me. But they were down by 14 points and they scored. And instead of just taking the PAT, they went for 2. And that got them within 6. So I don't know that play I don't mind as much because the idea is if you miss it, you're gonna have to go get the second one. But since you missed the first one, your chances of getting the second one are pretty high. So I don't know, but not to delve into those weeds too much, let's talk about the right tackle position, which there haven't been a lot of position battles because we kind of talked about corner, like receiver. There are position battles, but all those guys are going to get on the field, like D-line too. Offensive tackle, not really the same. You mostly you stick your right tackle out there, and that's the guy that you roll with. You don't really like alternate possessions or plays or anything. Some teams do. There are situations like that, but Matt Rhule said in terms of the guys competing for the jobs, Tyler Knack, the former Utah transfer, Gunnar Gatula, who started, I think, 11 games at left tackle last season for Nebraska, Teddy Prochazka, who is full go 100%, has started a few games at the tackle position in his Nebraska career. And he also mentioned Turner Corcoran, but said he wasn't going to be ready to go for fall camp. So it sounds like the right tackle is going to be Gatula, Tyler Knack, or Teddy Prochazka. So what were your thoughts, and who do you think that it's going to be?
Well, I do think it's was there any specific reason? I can't remember. It's been so long. Why Teddy wouldn't be ready to go? Is it just a result of his injuries?
I guess it would just be injuries, but they
Oh,
said he's 100%. So
okay. No, I
I
was just
think
wondering.
I think he was limited in the spring. I think that's why
That's right, he
that's
was.
probably why he said
There
that.
was a
So
group there was a group that was limited in the spring that Matt Rhule had said at the time. Now I remember that they should be ready for August, but
yeah,
that's
and
obviously up to the players and his health and his discretion. But I would, I
and
like all the
Gatula was among that group too, but he's fully he's healthy too.
I like all the options there, but I was really impressed with how Gunnar Gattuso was kind of thrown in last year. I thought he, there were some times when he struggled, but I thought by and large he did a solid job. So I'd love to see them develop him a little bit more, and I would give him the job there.
Yeah, and I think I do think there's probably a chance he still wins out. It looks like Knack. I know that's who Rule said would get like first go, but I feel like that's kind of based on spring. And if Gatula wasn't really healthy, then he'll probably
Yeah,
work his way back into the mix. But you're right. I thought he played pretty well at left tackle, and I mean I know they brought in Elijah Pritchett, but I just thought at the very least like he got in people's way. He didn't get torched on. He didn't get Dylan Raiola killed out there. It wasn't like if Gatula was the tackle this year, like it would have been fine. I mean, yeah, you want to have like a true like NFL caliber dude like they have now in Elijah Pritchett, but like Gunnar Gatula, at least you could do a lot worse than Gunnar Gatula. And I
yeah.
mean, not to rip on Turner Corcoran, who I think can be a fine guard or maybe a right tackle, but like I mean, Gunnar Gatula I think was better than some of his performances out there at left tackle, during the Frost days. I mean, is that wrong?
No, that's not wrong. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been very
So
loud about Turner Corcoran, so I
yeah,
mean, plus, and I'm not taking a shot here either. You never know about Corcoran's health enough to where you can count him in at the at the tackle spot.
yeah, because he's still going through it. And I think it was a bummer because they had him playing guard, and I think that was finally the best spot for him. And then he got hurt, and
What was
he
that, 2
still.
years ago now?
I think it was the start of last season,
Or was
actually.
this that's right. Okay.
Yeah, well, but it was 2 years ago, and then he kind of came back. So that's
That's
been
right.
the story of his last two seasons, really. But I do think if he, could play guard, that's why I think there was some talk of Latovsky moving out to right tackle, and that could still be an option as opposed to right guard or left guard or wherever he's going to play. But either way, I mean, you look at Gatula. I think if he does win the job, I mean, he's a double-digit starter at tackle, so right tackle should be fine. But Tyler Knack is pretty impressive, and he's a 6'6", 325. So if he can beat him out, the more power to him. And the thing about Teddy is, I've heard, I think we mentioned this before, but there was kind of like I don't know if it was a former player. I think it was a former player, and he was like doing an interview maybe with Hail Varsity or one of those outlets. But he said his prediction was that Teddy Prochazka was going to win the job, and that was kind of like a but I think it was a former offensive lineman. I know this is really vague. I just don't remember it, but
I
I'm just
remember
saying,
us
like,
talking about the interview. I
yeah,
like you, I don't remember all the details, but
I'm just saying, like, just keep an eye out on Teddy Prochazka because if this guy can get healthy and if he can be the guy that even if he can in any way resemble the guy that he was like in 2021, when he first got on the field, he could win this job because he does have all the tools, that you could want for an offensive tackle. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So maybe it'll finally work out. And I think that's one, he's probably one of the winners of the whole roster limit thing because if
yeah.
the roster limit was in place, I don't know that he would be on the team right now.
And we were talking about depth just a couple minutes ago, and I think now Nebraska has enough depth to where, Teddy doesn't have to worry about always being, the guy. He can kind of take his time and ease into things now, whereas in previous years, Nebraska's had to throw him out there just because they haven't had depth at the position. So I think that's a testament to, where the roster is now in comparison to where it was when Matt Rhule got here.
And yeah, just a lot of other options. We've talked about the offensive line, haven't even mentioned, Gibson Pyle, Grant Bricks,
Mm-hmm.
Preston Tamua. So a lot more. Rhule said that they want to get 10 deep and feel like they have 10 guys, and I think that they will be there by opening day. I feel like they definitely have 10 offensive linemen that you could throw out there right now and that you would feel pretty good about. And I think that most teams I think there's a lot of Big Ten teams that would definitely not mind having Grant Bricks as their starter, and he's a backup still for Nebraska. I mean, maybe that'll change. Who knows? But
I feel the same about Preston too.
Yeah, offensive line is in a good spot. So, and I think that's moving forward. So let's talk about some of the things that Dylan Raiola said. Was wearing the fancy suit. The suit's only going to wear one time, but I thought he handled. Excuse me, I thought he handled himself graciously, my goodness, at Big Ten Media Days. Didn't say anything crazy. He did say that, the goal was to win a national championship, but, as we were kind of talking about off the air, if you're Dylan Raiola and you're not trying to win a national championship, like, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so let's not rip a kid for having the number one goal be his number one goal, right? He didn't say like, oh, I'm trying to win the Heisman Trophy or something, like he was talking about team goals, and that's what, Nebraska's done it before. They can do it again.
Or I'm trying to win 3 games. 3 games this year.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he said stuff like that. That was interesting. But the thing that caught my eye, or that got my ears perked up, was when he said, I'm going to be running more this year because Nebraska fans will be excited. I'll be running more, and basically that I'm in better shape. That he, which Matt Rhule kind of already hinted at that, and he kind of went viral for that, and probably a way that was unfair to Dylan, but it is what it is. But he, just last year, and so here was the exact quote. I don't know, I've lost it. I just wanted to read the exact quote out. But he basically said that fans are going to be really excited about this because he, has been in better shape, and that they're going to see the fans are going to see him running more this season. I know the fans will be excited to hear this, but I'm going to be excited to run a lot more this year, being quicker and faster. Sorry about that. My browser on my phone just messed up, but that's the quote from Dylan Raiola, and that got me excited because I'm thinking about a lot of, of the RPOs. This can help in RPO situations too, but just a lot of read option plays last year where it really felt like if Dylan, like the read was turned off for Dylan, they didn't even, give him the option to read it. I think he did one maybe against Colorado or somebody where he read and kept it around the corner, but it's like, man, if you just put that in every once in a while, the defensives just aren't respecting it. I feel like he could bust off, at least early in the season, like a 15-20 yard run, at least like 1 or 2 times a game, because that end is going to be crashing down so hard on Emmett Johnson. And then that explosive run probably won't be there. But if that defensive end has to hold himself and respect Dylan Raiola as a runner, that's going to make a big difference for Nebraska in the read option and the RPO game.
Or even just, throwing out of the pocket. There were times last season when he kind of struggled throwing out of the pocket a little bit. And one of the things I was thinking about is, and our favorite quarterback, Tom Brady, was always the best at this, was subtle movements in the pocket to kind of throw off the defensive line a little bit. When he felt pressure, he would kind of step up and throw and, be able to buy himself some extra time. So I think that will help with little things like that too. And I don't want Dylan Raiola running a ton, but I do like the idea of his ability to run and, how much more that could open up the offense.
Yeah, and that does excite me even more, just his mobility and awareness in the pocket, because he does throw pretty well on the move. But, there were times last year where it felt like he thought he had more time, and then he would end up like getting sacked or kind of like pushed it. Like he couldn't quite get himself into a position to throw the ball. And part of that, I think, was just, he was a little overweight at times last year for a quarterback. And so I think we're going to see a big difference in that this year. And just like buying time for Dane Keene, Isaiah Hunter, to Corey Barney to get open. And that, I mean, when you think about those guys and the speed they have, and that's going to be a huge weapon for this offense, or even just like once a game running for a first down on 3rd and 6. I mean, I think he did that in the Ohio State game. He did that quite a few times. I do want to see that. I do want to see him slide though. Like get down, get out of bounds, don't take hits. I don't want to see him. And when I say that, I don't want that option, that read option on for him all the time, right? Like we don't need to turn this into Adrian Martinez, but if he runs it, one or two times a game and picks up 6-7 yards before he gets out of bounds, just so the defense has to respect that, then I think that'll be a positive thing. But they do need to be careful because he's the golden goose. Like there's no question about it. Like Nebraska will go as Dylan Raiola goes this season.
Yeah, although if he has Adrian Martinez like running ability and Dylan Raiola decision making, then I'll take that all day of the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't want him running a ton. I do think him being in better shape will help him absorb hits a little bit. And it's crazy that he was a freshman last year and he's entering his sophomore season. And I think that extra year under his belt, playing college football at full speed will help him.
I still think people don't appreciate how hard it is to play quarterback as a freshman. And he completed, 67% of his passes, and he didn't have, he didn't have the greatest receivers of all time. I mean, that kind of forced him to, force some throws at times. They didn't have a brilliant running game. It was kind of just kind of an average team with a freshman quarterback. And I thought that they were pretty solid. And I know he had a slump in the middle of the season, but like, man, I truly think, and I wrote this the other day, but I think he's one of the biggest X factors in all of college football. I mean, tell me a bigger X factor than Dylan Raiola. I mean, I know there's like Arch Manning, but Arch Manning is expected to be good. Like we expect him to go be the number one pick. Like Dylan Raiola right now, I just feel like he's such an unknown. I mean, you could say maybe a guy like Bryce Underwood or even Julian Sayin, like one of those quarterbacks, but like Dylan Raiola for like what he could be as the former number one overall quarterback in his class. And I know he finished ranked a little bit lower than that, but if he plays like that this year, I mean, the ceiling they could bust out the ceiling that it's been in this program for the past decade, or he could be just slightly better and they could win 8 games. Like, I just feel like he is one of the biggest wild cards in all of college football, not just the Big Ten, but the entire sport.
Yeah, and now, like you said, he has the weapons to do it. I mean, you mentioned Barney, Hunter, guys like that. I mean, they have probably the best wide receiver group they've had since I've started covering the team. I don't know. Can you think of a time that they've had a better group of wide receivers than this particular?
No, and I thought last year's was one of the best they've had because they just haven't had very many, great wide receivers over the years. They did have some good during the Pelini days, like Kenny Bell. I'm missing some guys, but
Jordan Westerkamp.
Yeah, Jordan Westerkamp. There's another guy that Spielman, JD Spielman.
I remember JD because
I
left.
loved him. Yeah, I know.
Well, he left on bad terms because he was at the end of the Frost days, and didn't he transfer to some Texas school?
I think so. Yeah, I don't quite remember. He was one of my favorites though. And then the kick return guy, Pearson.
DeMornay Pearson.
Yeah, yep. He was really good. So they had some good receivers, and but yeah, this collection of talent with Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter, Cortez Mills, Carter Nelson, I think that was actually one of, and we'll get to that here in a second in our Big Ten media takeaways, but Carter Nelson's going to be a full go. I think a solid running game, a better offensive line. There's lots of reasons to be very confident in Dylan Raiola, and I thought Matt Rhule said a lot of interesting things about him. He embraced, the difficult times and how he wanted to come do something hard, which is turn around this program. And it's not going to be easy, but they definitely I think they took a step forward last year. We even winning the Pinstripe Bowl, like we talked about, I thought was a big deal. All right, so let's switch final part, Big Ten media takeaways and just kind of a 360-foot view, some of the biggest takeaways. But one that I wanted to start off with, which we kind of alluded to, though, was Carter Nelson. That's one of my big takeaways, is that he is not going to be missing time this season. That was a concern. He's 100% healthy, and Matt Rhule made the comment he better be ready to go week 1. So I'm thinking maybe Carter Nelson's going to have a bigger impact in this passing game than we thought he was going to.
Yeah, and could you see an instance where he could start within the first couple weeks of the season?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially, I think in terms of receiving ability, he's like head and shoulders above the tight end room. I mean, I know we haven't seen Heinrich like fully as a tight end yet, and I think he will make some plays, but he strikes me as a guy that's going to catch like 10 or 15 passes in a season, where I think I think Carter could catch like 40. I think Carter could catch 40 to 50 passes. So, it depends on how reliable he is blocking and all that type of stuff, which is slightly different from, I mean, he was playing I know he was playing everything, but he played with the ball in his hands mostly in his 6-man team. So it is going to be a little bit different, maybe inline blocking, but he played special teams last year. So I don't think it's going to be, maybe there'll be some technique that he needs to learn, but I think he'll get there eventually. So it would not shock me if, honestly, if by the end of the season, if we look at the snap count at tight end, if Carter Nelson is the leader in that, because I think he really could do that.
One of the things that I took away from media days was that Isaiah Mosey asked Matt Rhule if he could play running back. I thought that was interesting because we were wondering, how the switch was made, how it came about, and Matt Rhule kind of talked about this on Tuesday. He said he thought it was just an opportunity to get Mosey on the field more. So I think I think it was really a good idea of him to switch Mosey to running back and just get the best athletes on the field.
Yeah, I did think that was interesting. I'm wondering how much he will be used like at wide receiver still, but yeah, I thought that I like that Matt Rhule, gave his players the opportunity to go do that. So I'm excited to see Isaiah Mosey there. And
I'm wondering if he'll be used in like a not Nebraska, but a Wan'Dale Robinson type role, like he was used at Kentucky, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly, or just I could see him doing, running back and then some of the gadget stuff.
Yeah.
That Ja'Cory Barney did last season, and just allow Ja'Cory to be a wide receiver, which I think would be a good thing. But I don't think we're going to see as much of that gadget stuff either with Dana Holgorsen. But yeah, and I guess my takeaway is just that this program believes it's ready to compete for a playoff spot. That's the goal, I think, this season, and it's right. It's all right there in front of them. And my takeaway is just like, this is a good time to be a Nebraska football fan. So like, let's gear up and get ready for this 2025 season.
My takeaway is that, this team truly believes in what it's doing, and it believes in the culture that they're building. And we haven't always seen that in past years. We've seen players doubt themselves and at times doubt the program, but I can tell that this team really believes in itself, from the coaching staff to the players on down, and that's going to be extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, you guys, we will wrap it up there, and we'll be back with another episode coming up this Friday, and then we'll have a Husker Big Red, or Coffee with Big Red, Coffee with Husker Big Red on Saturday for our live chat. So join us there, 7 a.m. Central Time. So yeah, if you want to chat more about the Huskers, but we'll have some other content as well. So make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.